this video, I'm going to show you what you need to start turning this into this. Hi everyone, it's James here from Rising 8 Minis, helping you on your journey to unlocking the secrets of painting mini masterpieces. On this channel, you can expect tips, advice, gear reviews, tutorials, and hopefully the spark that will help unlock your next mini adventure. So if you're ready to join me on our journey, consider subscribing, and if you're already part of the family, welcome back, and let's get into this. Okay, so item number 1, brushes. We're going to talk about brushes. There's loads of different ways you can do this. I guess my first piece of advice would be you can spend a lot of money on brushes, you really can. $20, £10 to £20 on a single Kolinsky head brush. My advice would be, if you're starting out, don't do that. Either invest in super cheap natural fibres if you want to do that and really save on your budget. You can get them off Amazon. I'll show you some in a second. Or invest in a mid-range, something like the Games Workshop Citadel brushes are great brushes, or something you can pick up from an art store for about, £5, £10, something like that. Find something mid-range. You don't want anything too small. Too small just means it'll take you ages and ages and ages to paint little surfaces. If you go too big, you won't be able to get into the little details. So you want something around a size 1 or a size 2 if you're going to go by the standard art brush sizes, or if you're going to buy from Games Workshop, you want something around a standard, something like that. I keep mine in just an old rolled up dissection case. I've actually had this since I went to university, which is too long ago now. But as you can see, I just keep them rolled up in a little tube, and that's it. So these brushes here, I use for small detail work. They cost a couple of £1 each, something like that. This brush here is actually a size 7. That's pretty big. I use this for base coating. It's a synthetic brush. This one here is a Raphael 8404. This is quite an expensive brush. These are about 15 quid each, something like that. I use this for most of the sort of the blending and glazing and that sort of work I do. But to be honest with you, for the first couple of years, I just used something like that. That's a Citadel standard brush, and I did 90% of my mini painting with that. You can do most of the things you want to do. You'll struggle with maybe eyes, but I wasn't very good at painting eyes. I'm still not. You can give her a huge amount of difference on that, and you can pick this up for less than a £5. So that would be my standard thing. Start with something basic, discover what you like, work from there. Okay, so we've covered brushes, so next, surprise, surprise, is going to be paint. Again, you start looking into this hobby and there's thousands of different types of paint all over the place. You can go for hobby brands like Army Painter, you can go for art brands like Golden Acrylic and those sort of people. You can even start looking at more fine art mediums, watercolours, oils, all that sort of stuff. We'll go into all this later on, but for now, I just want to give you a couple of basic overviews. Most people will start with something like that. That is a brand called Citadel. They make amazing paints. There's thousands of different shades, and most of the tutorials you'll watch will cover a Citadel brand and tell you exactly what colour paints they use. They're really good starting point. They're quite expensive. If you want an easier, more accessible range, again, available widely, but a little bit cheaper, Vallejo make amazing paints as well. Much bigger range. They've got ranges for airbrushes, they've got ranges for models, they've got ranges for scale painting, for army painting. You name it, you can do it with Vallejo. And they come in neat little dropper bottles, which don't dry out in the same way that the old Citadel ones do, and are a little bit easier to use, so you waste less paint. Really good shout. To get a bit fancy, or if you don't have a Games Workshop store near you, I'd particularly look at going to an art shop, pick up any coloured acrylic. They'll have a decent selection of paint. They're much more expensive, but the flip side of that is they'll come in much bigger bottles, and they're generally higher quality pigments, so you'll be able to name the pigments and stuff like that. We'll do a whole series of videos about colour and pigments and that sort of stuff later on. But seeing as this video is me supposed to be giving you advice, my advice would be start out with something like a Vallejo paint or a Citadel paint. They're really easy to work with. They're available everywhere. yeah, they're just really good starter paints. There's plenty more we can go into about this. I get unnecessarily excited about paint. We'll definitely do a video about it later. But for now, Vallejo or Citadel, which you can pick up from any Games Workshop store. Okay, you've got a paintbrush, you've got some paint. You need somewhere to put it. A couple of schools of thought on this. You can either get a palette, something like that. This is actually an old IKEA shoebox type thing I've been using for a decade or something like that. It's really, really cool. I use this for many, many years completely happily before I knew the wonders of things called wet palettes. But now I've discovered wet palettes, I probably wouldn't go back. A wet palette looks something like that. But it can be as simple as a Tupperware lid with a sponge, some parchment paper and a bit of water in it. There's plenty of videos out there telling you how to make wet palettes. I'll make my own at some point in the future. If you're feeling flush, run to a wet palette. If you're not feeling flush, any old box lid, cardboard box lid, Tupperware, old margarine tub, anything like that, well, you can use anything you can put paint in so it stays wet while you're working with it. That's all you really need. So you've got your paintbrushes, you've got your paint, you've got your palettes. Now you need to take care of it all. So item number 4 is water. Water, that's pretty basic, isn't it? Couple of different things you use for water. One, you have an old mug, which you can use to rinse your brushes out in. I need to rinse that one a little bit more. Every time you change colours, every time you end a paint session, you want to be rinsing your brushes. I can't emphasise enough, the best way to take care of your brushes is to wash them regularly. In fact, if you want a top tip and you've got natural hair brushes, use some shampoo from upstairs, put a little bit of shampoo in a pot, mix it together, give it a nice soap off. At the end of the day, it's natural hair and you're washing it with shampoo. It'll clean everything off, nice and easy, works a charm. There are specialist things like Masters brush soap and all these sort of bits and pieces too. They cost a lot of money, you don't need them right away. You can make do with shampoo for a starter, but make sure you're washing your brushes. That's the best way to get a long life out of them. And at the end of it, you just want to shape the tip into a nice little point again, put its protective hat on, put it back in your pot. The other thing I would do, particularly if you're using something like a wet palette, I would invest in that. And that's deionized water. It costs about £3 for 5 litres. I've had that one for about a year, something like that. I'm about halfway through it now. Otherwise you get a little calcification and all sorts of gubbins building up in there. You don't necessarily want in there. It keeps everything nice and clean. I use it for washing out my airbrushes. So I'd definitely invest in something like that if you want to keep things a little bit cleaner. Other than that, that is item number 4. So item number 5 is a bit of a cop-out, really, to be honest with you. Item number 5 is practice. I know it's not really an item, it's a bit intangible, but 5 is a much nicer number than 4, so there you go. Practice is essentially what you need. You just need to get started, start putting brushstrokes onto your page, and just keep going, and keep going, and keep going. If you get it wrong, it doesn't matter. It's just painted plastic at the end of the day. Start somewhere, and when you do a really awful one, keep it, put it on your shelf, and come back to it 6 months later and go, wow, look how much I've improved. It's a really, really nice, it's like a little plastic journal on your shelf. This little chap here, I painted him wrong 5 or 6 times before I ended up with something I'm pretty pleased with. I can do a lot better than him, definitely. I'm still learning, I'm still improving. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, so that's it. It's pretty basic, right? I did say it was basic. But it has to be. Like I say, this hobby doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to be fun. You don't have to be a master painter, you don't have to be a master craftsman to enjoy it. If you can take one thing away from this, it's just paint and plastic. Just keep practicing away and having fun, and eventually you'll get better, and yeah, you can start sharing love with other people. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you like it, like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends. Maybe leave a comment down below if there's anything you want to change. Hopefully this whole setup will get better as we go on. But yeah, It's been fun. I'll see you in the next video.